And just to say, if you, it's lovely if we can see you and we can get some interaction as well. But if it feels more comfortable for you to have your camera off, then that's absolutely okay too. So we're going to begin by opening our circle, opening our sacred circle. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to figure out where east is in your house, in your space. So where does the sun rise? And we're going to start in the east. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call in the elements and directions, and I'm going to be facing the camera because otherwise you won't be able to hear my voice. I'm just meeting somebody else there. I'm going to be facing the camera because otherwise you won't be able to hear me, but I'm going to invite you to turn to that direction. And as I call in the directions, I just get you to follow with a response of hail and welcome. So let's begin. So clearing my throat. So, oh, hang on a second. I'm just going to admit Edie there. Okay, so we're going to use the rattle, and we're calling upon the ancient spirits of the east and the element of air, with the essence of eagle and butterfly and all those that fly, where the sun rises and the dawn breaks. Thank you for bringing your powers of clarity, communication, and insight. Hail and welcome. And then we're going to turn 90 degrees to the south. So we're going to go clockwise, sunwise. And we call upon the ancient spirits of the south and the element of fire, with the essence of lion and dragon and all those of fang and claw, where the sun rises high in the midday sky. Thank you for bringing your powers of courage and passion and determination. Hail and welcome. And then we turn around to the west. So we call upon the ancient spirits of the west and the element of water, with the essence of whale and otter and salmon and all those that swim, where the sun sets and our ancestors dwell. Thank you for bringing your powers of compassion and healing and dreaming to our circle. Hail and welcome. And then around to the north. So we call upon the ancient spirits of the north and the element of earth, with the essence of wolf and stag and bear and all those of horn and hoof, fur and paw. Thank you for bringing your powers of strength and groundedness and rebirth and manifestation. Hail and welcome. And then we're going to either place our hands on the floor if we can, or we're just going to put our hands in the direction of the floor, because now we're going to welcome in the energy of Mother Earth, of Pachamama, she who sustains and nourishes us and holds us in this sacred place. So hail and welcome to her. We then lift our hands up to the sky to welcome in Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, and the Star Nations for joining us in our circle and supporting us this evening. Hail and welcome. And then finally, our hands on our hearts to welcome in our own little soul. So that part of us that's bringing ourselves here tonight for whatever reason we're coming and for whatever healing or transformation that we need. Hail and welcome to ourselves. So thank you so much for joining us for this circle and for this introduction to shamanism. So this is something that both Jim and I get really excited about, in terms of this both is the foundation for our work. So what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of an intro, each of us, and then we're going to go into some oh, Jim says, can I make him admin? Hang on one second. Oh, Sue can't see Jim. Interesting. Are you on your phone, Sue? Can everybody else see Jim? Yeah, okay. I think maybe it's a phone thing then. And Jim wants me to make him admin. Just one moment, sorry. Here we go. I can make you a host, but I want to be the host. So it's tough. I've got you spotlighted.
I think we can co-host.
No, it doesn't. Well, my Zoom doesn't tell me I can.
Okay,
Let me
all
try
right.
one more time. Let me try one more time. Make host. Oh, no, it doesn't give me permission to co-host.
Okay,
Sorry,
we'll let it
sorry,
go.
love. We'll crack on. So, where was I? So I'm going to introduce myself, then Jim's going to introduce himself, and you are welcome to ask us any questions along the way. So my name's Jen Maxwell. I'm a shamanic practitioner. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I'm a firewalking instructor and empowerment coach. Um, and I have had an earth-based spirituality practice for a lot of years. I was really lucky to grow up in the English countryside. My mum took us on walks from a very early age, and we learnt wildflowers. And pretty sure my grandma was a bit of a witch. And I've had this deep connection with the land for such a long time that it's really become part of who I am. And I became attuned to Reiki in my 20s, and I was really lucky because my mum did Reiki from a very early age from when I was little. So I've always kind of had a spirituality element to my life, and in my 20s I really picked up a more of a spiritual practice through beginning energy healing with Reiki, and this kind of developed. And when I was a little girl, I used to talk to the plants and the trees and the rocks, and I was pretty sure they spoke back to me. And now I've kind of embodied that into my practice because I realized as I kind of re-entered that spiritual space that, oh wow, this does actually kind of happen. In terms of my career, so I had my own personal practice, but alongside I've always worked in nature and the outdoors. So I was an outdoor instructor for a long time. I was taking people out in the mountains and on the rivers and in the lakes. I I studied agriculture and environmental science, so I studied the ecology and soil science. And alongside that was just deepening and deepening my spirit, my own personal spiritual practice. And I really began to dive in a bit deeper, and I began to do shamanic journeying. This is many years ago. And then I realized after a while that actually what I wanted to do was to be able to share this with other people and needed to formalize it. So I went and did my shamanic practitioner training, which is where I met Jim, and also doing my fire walking instructor training there. And what I realized was that actually through my own personal practice, spirit had shown me so many different things that I was being taught. And what I realized, it was a great lesson on how all of these universal practices really are universal, because they've been shown to me before I was taught them, and they had to come from somewhere. And what's so interesting, and we'll maybe touch on this later, is how so many of the different practices across the world share so many different cultures share the same practices. And my tradition is Celtic tradition. These are my lands. I live in the Lake District. My grandma was Scottish, and so I've got the Scottish heritage as well. And I've been really lucky to travel and study shamanism as well. So I've spent some time in Mexico. I've learned a lot about the Toltec shamanism from Jim, and was really lucky to go to Peru last year and really have a deep dive into some of the Peruvian practices, a lot of which we've brought back. So that's enough out of me. I'm going to hand over to Jim, and you can tell them all about you, love.
Hi, my name is Jim Gardner. I'm also known as Wolf. And one of the reasons I have been called Wolf is when I was a child, I had dreams about wolves from the time that I was 3 until I was 11. And in the beginning, this was a recurring series of dreams that were connected. And in the beginning, I was being chased by the wolves. And then in the middle years, I got caught and eaten by the wolf, and then I became the wolf. And so when I started studying Native American practices, I found that I had gone through in the dream world the process that one goes through on a vision quest and often encounters their power animal or their spirit animal. I started participating in sweat lodges and Native American ceremonies in my early 20s. And then I have studied and taught Toltec shamanism with Heather Ashamara for about 10 years. And then after working with Heather Ash, I went and studied Celtic shamanism with Stephen Mulhern for 4 years. And then I also studied with Peggy Dillon, and am a Sundor master. And so I'm also a master firewalker, which means I train the trainers, I train other firewalk instructors.
Keep going. I'm sure there's something else.
Yeah. No, I'm a master Reiki practitioner and a master Reiki teacher. There's a number of different certifications I mean, I've got a stack of certifications that I've picked up over the years in different modalities that I've trained in. I've had the experience a number of times where I think I've uncovered a practice. I've discovered a new practice. And invariably, what I've found is not only did I not discover something new, I call them downloads. I'll get a download. I'll get an intuitive hit on this is a way to do something. And then I'll find out not only did I not create something new, but there's some version of it in every major tradition. So, which goes back to what Jen was sharing about. And so my experience has been the longer that I am a practitioner and a teacher, the more I'm really have the sense that really what we're doing is we're just working with energy and intent. And so all of the practices that we're going to be teaching are, about working with intent, working with energy, working with breath. There's often, movement and sound involved. And these are the key elements that we are working with when we're doing shamanic practices. And whether it's the drum journeys that we're going to do a drum journey tonight, whether it's working with the drum or with meditation or breath work or any of these modalities that we teach and work with. And it's really about connecting with spirit. The name of my company is Not a Guru, which is a play on words. It's not a Spanish for nothing, but it also is not a guru. And I really feel like as teachers, our job is to help you connect with the divinity that's already within you. And I've always tell people when I'm teaching, it's like if I say something and that voice inside you says something else, listen to that voice because that's really what we're trying to do is help you connect to that voice, that divinity that's already inside you, and help you work and expand with that. Jen, I think that's enough out of Jim for
I was
now.
going to say, is that you complete? Okay, thank you. So hopefully you've got a bit of understanding about where we're both coming from. Um, so before we begin, I just want to say that this is an exploratory session. So there's no pressure to do or feel or experience anything in any particular way. And you're in your own space today, so actually that's a gift for you. You get to relax, you get to be in a really familiar space for you, and that might be helpful to kind of drop into the journey later on. Everything that we do is an invitation, it's not an instruction, and you are always in choice as we go through this. As we said, it's great if you can have your cameras on because then we feel your energy and that's really lovely. But if you feel more comfortable, then that's absolutely fine to have your camera off. And if at any point anything feels too much, you can just, especially when we're doing the journey, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, you can open your eyes, have your feet flat on the floor, just be aware of your breathing, coming back to this space. And if you need anything afterwards or anything, you can reach out to either Jim or Ryan. We'd be really happy to talk to you. Yeah, if you need us in any way. So the way this is going to work, we're going to talk a little bit about shamanism, what it is. I'm going to dive into the Celtic side of things. Jim's going to dive into the Toltec side of things. We're going to talk about some of the universal practices that there are, and then we're going to dive into a drum journey. So some of you may have experienced a drum journey before, some of you might not have, and we're going to give options for those for both those who have done it before and for those who it's the first time. So what I would love you to do, if you've got a question, I really would love you to pop it in the chat. I'm going to keep half an eye on the chat as we go along, and so's Jim. And if we've got questions that are relevant along the way, we'll pick them up as we go. And then we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll share some other stuff that we've got going on in the future. So let's dive in. Okay, so what is shamanism? So shamanism, or the word shaman, comes from the Tungus tribe in Siberia, and it means one who sees in the dark, one who knows. And we know that shamanic practices go back to around about 40,000 years. So it's seen in cave art, it's seen in burial rites, and this has been a really core spiritual practice across the globe for all of that time. And what's so interesting is we see it in pretty much every culture, in every continent across the world. We know about the origin of the word in Siberia, Mongolia, but then we've got the Americas, we've got Africa, we've got Australasia, we've got Asia, and everywhere has its own different practice and its own, I guess, energy to it. So a shaman would be somebody who is the medicine person, the healer in a community. So a shaman would often be that person who would be a little bit detached or separated from the community, not kind of caught up in the general hubbub, because that shaman has the capacity or the ability to walk between worlds. So to be in this world and to be in the spirit world simultaneously at the same time. And so a shaman would be the person that you'd come to for healing, for wisdom, for divination, for bringing in good weather for the crops, for predicting what was going to happen. And they would be your go-to person. It'd be like kind of going to the doctor. They might be a herbalist as well. They might use plant medicine and the essence of plants. So a shaman is somebody who is very deeply connected to the natural world, deeply connected to nature. And this is the foundation of the Celtic tradition that I work with. What's interesting is there's a lot of interest in shamanic practices coming back into the modern world these days, and we see this in different ways. We'll talk a little bit about how it weaves into everything else, but there's a lot more interest, and people care about the planet. People are much more that people are curious about. Not only do we have the practical things we can do for the environment, we have the emotional and the spiritual side of things too. And having a shamanic practice just offers us so much personally. It offers us healing, it offers us transformation, it offers us insight, and we'll dive into that a little bit more later on. Jim, is there anything you want to talk about kind of universally around shamanism? We're going to come into practices later on. You're on mute.
Thank you. My favorite definition of shamanism comes from Don Miguel Ruiz, and it is basically that it's a tool bag, it's a tool set. And so, as I've gone through different modalities, I pick those tools that resonate with me, and those are the ones that I use and teach. Don Miguel Ruiz says it's not a religion. It's really just it's a tool set. So whether that tool set being, using your shamanic drum and doing the drum journey, or if it's breath work, or if it's recapitulation. And as we go through these different lineages, there's different tools that we have picked up and taught.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, we talk. So it's not a religion; it's a spiritual practice. And like Jim says, as you said at the beginning, you take the bits that work for you, and you leave the bits that don't. And that's the beauty of this. And what we'd really love you to do is get some insight into how you can do that throughout this session as well. So if we dive into Celtic shamanism, we talked about shamanism being present in all cultures, and in the shamanic realms, in the Celtic realms, in these lands, a lot of our indigenous wisdom has been lost, and a lot of the reason is due to Christianity, where the church overtook our spiritual practices, although many of them are still woven in. And also things like the burning times, the witch trials, where it just wasn't safe to practice these practices anymore. It wasn't safe to practice herbalism. It wasn't safe to be a seer. And so a lot of these were suppressed and not really, and feared. So we don't have great records of it. So a lot of the practices that we do today come from neo-paganism, neo-shamanism, and also, like we said before, downloads of the different practices that actually come direct from spirit. In the Celtic tradition, there's a belief around everything is alive and everything has spirit. So it means that every plant, every tree, every rock has a spirit, has an energy, and is able to communicate with you. We call it animism. And not only do we have this world, this physical world, but we also have the other worlds as well. So these are like the spirit realm that exists alongside this realm. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but essentially we have a lower world, a middle world, and an upper world. And the shaman would be able to step between those worlds. I'm just going to talk about the difference between a shaman and a shamanic practitioner. So, a shaman is an indigenous person who has had I guess the title either come down through the family line, or they've been given it as a particular role in a community. A shamanic practitioner is somebody like me who has had a real interest in this and has learned these practices. So I wouldn't consider myself to be a shaman. I consider myself to be a shamanic practitioner. So coming back to this world, everything is sacred. So the mountains are sacred, the trees are sacred, the rivers are sacred, the forests, the wells in particular, and everything, all the features in the landscape are either celebrated and also often seen as portals to the other world as well. We're going to talk about the Axis Mundi, which is our own personal portal to the other world. And there's spirit in everything. So there's a spirit of water. There's the elementals, the spirits in the wind, there's the fae. And so there's a whole host of potentially fairy folk, as we might call it, which different people will call on at different times. And some people really connect with that, and other people work very much in a more elemental way. You might have heard of the Celtic Wheel of the Year. And so that's often, this is the Celtic version of the medicine wheel. And this is where all of the different parts of the year are celebrated and also honored as well. So the beginning of the Celtic New Year is actually Samhain, which is Halloween. And that's the final harvest, that's the nut harvest. Then we move to the sorry, I'm just letting Ellen back in. Then we move to the winter solstice. Then from the winter solstice, we move to Imbolc, which is the beginning of spring. We then move into Ostara, which is the spring equinox. We then move to Beltane, which is my favourite fire festival. We always have a great firewalk on Beltane. Then we move to the summer solstice, which we've just had. Then from the summer solstice, we move to Lunasar or Lammas, which is the first harvest, the grain harvest. Then we move to the autumn equinox, which is also more modern times known as Mabon, and then we're back to Samhain. So each of the seasons is celebrated in different ways, and often that gives you a festival pretty much every 6 weeks, which is always fun. It's always something to celebrate. So I'm going to talk a little bit about witchcraft and shamanism because they are very, very closely aligned. Now, I consider myself to be a witch. Somebody who is a witch can be determined as a wise person, somebody who is, I guess, has very similar qualities to the shaman, somebody who walks between worlds, and somebody, as Jim was saying earlier, who works with intention and energy. And shamanism and witchcraft, for me, are very, very closely combined, especially when we think about herbalism and different healing modalities as well. One of the other things that we'll touch on as a practice later is medicine walking, which is where we set an intention when we go out for a walk. I do medicine running because I like to run in the mountains, where we set an intention to like, it's what do I need to know today? What do I need to know about a particular issue? So in some practices, in some traditions, that's called medicine walking. Sometimes in the Celtic tradition, it's called omen walking as well. So I'm going to pause there because that's a lot. And I'm going to pass over to Jim to talk a bit more about the Toltec tradition, which is a little bit different. Over to you, love.
Okay. One of my favorite stories is in the Toltec cosmology. The belief is that we are all each our own individual ray of light from the sun. And the way that I hold this is that we all hold our own unique vibration. And so the Toltecs have a practice called recapitulation. And so this idea that we hold our own unique vibration means that the energy that makes up our field is unique to us. And that's the only energy that we can use. And so by working with our energy, by keeping our energy clear, by keeping it clean, then we're more effective. We're able to um, create through using our intent. And so the Toltecs have a practice called recapitulation, where basically this idea that as you go through the world and you're in relationship or you have encounters with people or you just, touch the things that you're around, you take on energy that's not yours and that you leave some of yours behind. And so recapitulation is this practice where you're bringing back the energy that's yours and you're sending back the energy that's not yours. And so you can get back to being whole, basically. Because if you're carrying other people's energy in your field, or you're carrying energy that's not yours in your field, then that's taking up space where basically, but you can't actually use it. And then at the same time, if you've left your energy behind, that's energy that you're not able to access and use. Over the years, I've also come to working with expanding my container. And what I mean by that is just holding a larger field. And so, and this, it's through using, meditation, through recapitulation, and doing these different practices where I just have more energy at my disposal. And so within the Toltec cosmology, this energy that we've got, this is what we're using to create. This is where we are, when we set an intention and then we're working to manifest by using this energy. Also within the Toltec cosmology, there's this concept of the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. Um, within that tradition, the eagle represents the upper world, the jaguar represents the middle world, and the snake represents the lower world. And so you'll also hear this in the Peruvian traditions. I think that's enough out of Jim for
That
now.
enough out of Jim. Do you want to say anything about Don Miguel Ruiz, or are we done with that?
No, I feel complete at this time.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. Okay, so remember you can pop any questions in the chat at any time. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the universal practices that cover a lot of the different traditions, a lot of the different cultures. And Jim just alluded to one of them, which is the different worlds. So when we step into what we call non-ordinary reality, when we journey, and actually let's come on to what journeying means. So to journey is to alter the brain state into almost like a trance-like state with the beat of a drum, um, or perhaps a rattle. And what it does is it helps us to more easily shift into non-ordinary reality, and we can access the lower worlds. And so, oh, Edie needs to go. Bye, Edie. Um, and so we have these three worlds. So the lower world is it's always a place in nature. It is a place where if we experience people there, then they are pre-agricultural communities. And this is a place where we find a lot of animal energy here. So this is where we go to meet our power animal. This is where we go to, well, we're often taken there, but essentially this is the first journey that we do is to go down to the lower world and to meet our power animal there. And what we'll find there is we'll find spirit animals. We'll find guidance in the form of the land, in form of the trees, in form of the elements, but it's a very elemental and animalistic space in the lower world. We then got the middle world, which is this world, which can be really chaotic. I mean, this world is chaotic, right? But sometimes we're taken to the middle worlds for insight and for lessons and for understanding. And then we have the upper world. And the upper world is a space where we encounter spirit guides who are higher beings. You know, they might be ascended masters, they might be kind of more in the angelic realm, and they have a very often have a higher vibration to them. When we journey to these worlds, we are usually taken there by our power animal. We're going to talk about that in a moment, and they will guide us where we need to go. So they'll kind of will present the issue, the problem, the subject that we want to talk to them about, and then they'll take us to these different spaces. Jim, is there anything else you want to add there?
The only thing I want to add is I often think of the lower world also as our inner world or as our subconscious. So when I'm thinking about the lower, the middle, and the upper, I think of the lower world more as the internal world, and the middle world, of course, is the place where we live day to day, and then the upper world being the angelic realms or those places of a higher vibration.
Mhm. Thank you. So, the way that we access this, and we're going to do this in a moment, is we have what's called an axis mundi, which is literally means the axis between worlds. And this can be, this is different for everybody, but like a portal between the two worlds. So, for me, my axis mundi is a beautiful ash tree that I know very well, that is completely hollow on the inside. And so I know I can get inside her in the physical realm, but I also know that when I journey, that's my access point to the axis mundi. So that is my axis mundi. So um what it means is that that's the place that I go to, which is like my doorway. And each person will have a doorway that's completely individual to them. It might be a gap between the trees. It might be a gap between the tree roots on the ground. It might be a cave. It might even be some people step off a cliff into that space. And so our axis mundi is completely individual to us, and we might already know. Oh, there's a special place that I know in nature that could be my axis mundi. And so what happens when we journey is that we go to our axis mundi, and when we go down to the lower world for the first time, we will go down into the earth, down, down, down until we pop out into our lower world, where we can set an intention to for this journey that we're going to do. We're going to set an intention to meet our power animal, and if you already have a power animal, then you can choose what you do within that journey yourself. Jim, is there anything else that you want to add about that, about axis mundis or journeying?
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a slight segue.
Okay.
So we all have the same senses on the spiritual plane or the energetic realm that we do on the physical realm. And my experience working with people for over a decade at this point, probably closer to 15 years, has been that most of us are either have a tactile or a visual. So most people will either see things, or it's like they can touch it, they can feel it. And you'll talk, you'll hear people talking about they can feel this type of energy or they get information that way. You can also have an olfactory experience or a taste experience or auditory experience. And the reason I'm saying this is not everyone is visual. And so sometimes the information that they're getting from it, they're not going to see something in their journey. Jen is super visual. She always has these vivid, vivid journeys and that's not my experience. I mean, sometimes I'll see something, but sometimes it's more in an intuitive sense. Sometimes it's a feeling. So I just want to plant that. So if you're not having necessarily a visual experience, just follow. You'll follow the drum, and you will follow. It's like whatever the thoughts come in. Just trust that you're having the experience that you're supposed to have, and that the information is coming in is what you're supposed to get.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I think I am very visual, but then other people have very much more like a felt sense, like Jim was saying, or it's just like a knowing. It's just like you know. Um, when we are working with shamanic practices, we don't have to go into this other world. And I'm just going to pause and talk a little bit about how we can access shamanism in this world rather than having to go into this meditative state with a drum journey. Because one of the key practices that I use is medicine walking or omen walking. I mentioned that earlier. And that's just a practice of moving through the landscape with intention, with our open awareness, and questioning, what is it I need to know today? What can spirit give me in terms of reassurance or guidance or wisdom? And I wonder if you've ever been on a walk and you've been like, there's a little robin pops up and you think, oh, that's just for me. You know that that's for you. And sometimes where I live, there's hares. I see a lot of hares, and I can see lots and lots of hares. But one day I'll know that, oh, that hare's for me. Or I see a buzzard. I went for a run the other day and set an intention. I was going to go on a medicine run, and I was gonna receive what I needed to receive. And the first thing that happened as I ran through the woods was a jay flew past me. So a jay for me is a really special animal, and I've had jays just drop feathers for me, which is just a really special moment. The lovely blue feathers. And I saw a jay as I went past, and I was like, oh, well, the jay went past me. I was just like, oh, the universe has got my back today. This feels good. It just makes you feel like, oh, great. And then I ran up the mountain, and on the way up, I kept seeing little heart-shaped stones. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I'm just feeling so in love with the world, in love with everything. And then when I got to the top, I saw a raven. Now, one of Jim's spirit animals that he really connects with is a raven. So it made me think of Jim. And then as I came back down through the woodland, I went up Cat Bells, if anybody knows Cat Bells, came down in the woodland by Derwent Water. Lo and behold, another jay flew right past my face. And it was just one of those wonderful runs where I just got so much reassurance and wisdom and just I don't know, just like a feeling of being so connected to the land. So we have those opportunities to go out and do our own medicine walk anytime. I did a medicine walk in Orlando with with Jim, actually, although he wasn't there at the time, and was very surprised to come across an alligator. So an alligator was part of my medicine walk as well. So obviously we don't get that here, but you just don't know what might show up for you. Somebody's saying that they worked more through emotion. Absolutely. So what else did I want to say about medicine walking? Is there anything you want to add there, Jim, about guidance from this world, or the things that we can connect to in this world rather than having to access the other worlds?
Yeah, it's really just I think you've touched on this, but paying attention to what shows up. And often that's also how we can find our power animals. And so the wolf came to me in the world, but then the ravens came to me in the real world. And at this point, I've wandered. I've talked to ravens on the top of Kilimanjaro, and Scotland, and here in the Netherlands, and it's like everywhere I go. Um, Generally, I'm finding crows and ravens. So you'll find those pieces that speak to you, and sometimes it's a universal symbol. I've heard it said that cardinals are kind of a sign of God or sign of love, but it may be that specific animal or that thing that's showing up for you has a very specific meaning for you, and it's just knowing, when it comes up, trusting your intuition that you're getting the message that you're supposed to get.
Mm, thank you. So we have a question about, do we have more than one power animal? That's a great question. So we have a power animal, and then we have spirit animals, and there are different perspectives on this. So I personally have one power animal that I greet and meet every time I go on a shamanic journey, and that power animal takes me on my journey where I need to go. So I'll say, hey, I've got this question, or I've got this thing I want to heal, and they will take me where I need to go. They're like my little guide. And a power animal is a bit like your if anybody's seen The Golden Compass or read Philip Pullman's Dark Materials, it's like your demon. It's like your animal friend that's kind of almost inseparable from you. It's for me, my power animal is like my little buddy, my little otherworld buddy, and they will be there every time I journey. And also sometimes they come and visit me in this world as well. So if I'm doing a Reiki treatment or a different form of healing, occasionally my power animal will come in as well. And a spirit animal can be an animal that comes to us with wisdom. So it doesn't have to be personal to us, but it can be one that is bringing a message. So it might be just the energy or the essence of the animal is the message, or they might have a particular message for us. A spirit animal can be in this world and it can be in the other world as well. So for example, to me, a jay for me is a spirit animal, and a buzzard as well. Buzzards tend to drop feathers for me as well. I have a lot of feathers that I collect. And our power animal is, I guess it's like an extension of our consciousness in a way. And we do have one particular power animal, but then we might have different animals for different jobs. So, for example, we're going to talk about the different practices we can do within shamanism. But I have a particular animal that helps me with soul retrievals, for example. I have a particular animal that helps me with extraction. So they have different jobs and different purposes. Jim, have you got anything else you want to add about power animals, spirit animals? I'm pretty sure you will have.
Yeah, we have a slightly different perspective on this. So for me at this point, and as a practitioner that, yeah, entering, close to 6 decades in working with this, um, my experience has been I've had different animals come in at different times in my life and work with more, and some of them have continued throughout my life. The ravens and crows, they first showed up for me when I was about 19. The wolf showed up for me when I was 3. Um, I with the puma showed up for me when I was studying Toltec and shamanism in Mexico at Teotihuacan and started coming into my journeys at that point. Um, the bear showed up for me when really I was the 20 years I was really active as a father. I'm still a father, but I was I've raised 11 kids over 3 partnerships, but so when I was working with a lot of kids, Papa Bear showed up, and that was, started to show up in my journeys. When I started working with Celtic shamanism in Scotland, I had a dragon appear for the first time. And so, and the difference, and then I also have, there'll be different spirits, either guides or animals that may show up from time to time. But the distinction I make with those is I really do see them as aspects of myself. And I recognize that they are a part of me, whereas there may be other spirits or guides that show up in a journey, and they're not an aspect of me, but they're kind of an outside messenger. And so I do believe you can have more than one, and you're going to be more active with one, depending on, and so that's been my experience is depending on where I was in life and what time of life it was for me, I've been more active with different ones. But, often if I'm doing some shamanic work and I need to um, set a container for protection, I may have my power animals holding different corners or holding aspects of space while I'm working. So yeah, I do. I see them as aspects of myself, and that's the way that they show up for me.
Mm.
That feels complete.
Thank you. And also to say that a power animal isn't like a um a rabbit called Dave or a giraffe called Sarah or something like it's not individual like that. It's the essence of the animal species. So it's the essence of the species. So sometimes we have a differentiation between male and female because, for example, the male lion is different from the lioness. But more often than not, we're really focusing on the energy of the species. Um, and then we don't necessarily have spirit guides that are just animals. We sometimes have
Yeah.
people. We sometimes have people from different cultures. We have ascended masters and beings and angels and a whole host of energies even that can support us with whatever it is that we need. Yeah. Okay. Um, let's just talk very quickly about some of the different practices. So we're just going to do a journey to meet our power animal. Can I just have a show of hands or like a thumbs up if you haven't got your camera on? Who here has done a shamanic journey before where you've met your power animal? So who here knows who their power animal is? Okay, we've got Kaylee. Other people are a little bit maybe newer to it. Okie dokie, that's great. So Kaylee, if you and anybody else that I've missed, if you already know who your power animal is, use your journey to reconnect with your power animal and then to ask it whatever you need. But just to say that our journeys can be for several reasons. So they can be for inquiry, for divination. They can be for healing, and they can be for transformation. They can be for knowledge. So one of the traditional practices that we have is just to journey to the other world and say, for advice and wisdom of what do we need to know, and we just need to talk to our power animal and they will help us, and we might get some direct answers, we might get some symbolism, we might have to figure it out for ourselves, but spirit will guide us in a particular way that is exactly right for us. We also have a practice called a power retrieval, which is where if we are seeking a return of power. So say, for example, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling low in confidence. I might go on a shamanic journey to ask for more confidence, or to ask for strength of courage, strength of character, or any quality that I need to call in. And that's where our power animal will come along and say, okay, great, we were going to go and find say, for example, the other day I did a journey and I was like, I really need to be more organized. My admin is terrible at the moment and I need to be much more structured. And I was taken to the beaver to get the energy to have the power of the beaver returned to me, or the power of the beaver given to me, so I could feel so much more empowered and organized and structured, and it really makes a difference. It really works. So we got the power retrieval. We then have a soul retrieval. So the way that a soul retrieval works is the belief is that every time we experience trauma, whether that's big T trauma where we have something like a car accident or a physical injury, or a very emotional experience in our life, or whether it's little T trauma, which is that we got scared by a dog, or our teacher shouted at us, whatever that might be, some experience of trauma in some way. What happens is a little piece of our soul detaches and goes off and hides, and is separate from us. So in a soul retrieval, we're guided to go and retrieve, to find that little piece of soul, to bring that soul back so we can come back to wholeness. So it's a really, really beautiful practice. We then have other practices, for example, which is we have extraction, which some people use as well, which is to help shift energies that we perhaps don't want, and then replace them with things that we do want. And then there's a whole host of practices. Jim mentioned recapitulation. Jim, do you want to jump in here and add anything I've missed?
So I also teach a practice I call activating the little soul, which is a way to fill your field with your energy. You're working with the heart chakra and breath to fill your field. Um, we're just talking about practices in general.
Yeah.
Of course, meditation is, meditation is probably one of my core practices. When we went into COVID and I was not able to lead firewalks, I taught an online, did an online meditation class. Um, oh, we've got grounding and shielding and clearing. So again, this is working with, grounding is, connecting with the earth and getting grounded. Clearing is we can either be clearing our field or someone else's field or the field in a space. Um, Shielding is a way to create a bubble of protection that it's around us or around a space. Often with these practices too, we're working with developing our intuition. So what you'll notice over time is like as these pieces come in, and then they feel like you'll have an intuitive hit, and then that you'll get a confirmation for that, and then okay, you can feel in your body sense of okay, that's what it feels like when I am having an accurate intuition, and so you can become more and more attuned to yeah, to following your intuition. Now I'm feeling complete at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to go on to our own shamanic journey. So, this is your opportunity to experience a journey yourself. So, for those of you that have not yet journeyed to meet your power animal, that can be our intention for this evening. And for those of you who have journeyed to meet your power animal, perhaps this is a journey for you to reconnect with your power animal and to ask it for any wisdom or guidance that you might be needing. So, the way this is going to work is we're going to go through kind of a visualization process, but I'm going to invite you to do that yourself in your own way. So, to begin with, we're going to find our axis mundi. So, you might have an idea of what this is already, but I'm going to invite you to imagine a space where you will be able to access the other realms. So perhaps something comes to you intuitively, or perhaps you want to imagine um, a space between some trees or a cave. And this space is going to take you down into the earth. That might be that you have to dig down into the earth. It might be that there's already a staircase going down into the earth. And you go down and down and down and down until you pop out in another realm. And this other realm will be a place in nature. And it's different for everybody. So mine is a beautiful clearing in a forest. Some people are in the mountains. Some people are by the water. Some people are on the edge of a cliff. So it's entirely up to you and where you get taken to. And in that space, you're going to come out into the lower world, and you're going to ask for you to see your power animal. We're going to set an intention now to meet your power animal. When you get to the world, down into the world, go and explore, have a look around, see what's there. And you might find that there's animals there already, or you might find you have to look for them. And the key thing here is we are asking, are you my power animal? So we're going to ask that animal 3 times, are you my power animal? And you might ask it and it might say yes, and you might walk away and it'll follow you, and you say, are you my power animal? So we're just kind of checking in there. With the practice is to do it 3 times. Sometimes that might be really obvious. Sometimes there might be a lot of animals and we have no idea which one it is. Sometimes we might just get a glimpse of a feather, or we might just get the feeling, or we might see an eye. And sometimes we might not get anything at all. And I think that's a really important thing to say here, is that you will receive whatever you're meant to receive in this moment. And sometimes actually all we need to receive is feeling the beat of the drum. And when we hear the beat of the drum, it can be quite like a really beautiful and grounding experience, because as a child, as a baby, the first thing we hear is the beat of a drum of our mother's heartbeat. So it can really take us back into a beautiful space. And so the invitation here is to just allow whatever's meant to happen to happen. If you find you're struggling to get down into the lower world, perhaps just let go of expectations and see what happens. What else do I need to say about this? I'm going to give a demonstration of the drum beat in a moment. And we have a regular rhythmic beat, and then towards the end we have a callback. So you know it's time to come back up. It gives you a little bit of time. The drum beat changes a little bit. And we're going to be drumming for about 10 minutes. And during that time, you can either lie down, you can sit. It's important to be comfortable and warm, and to be in a space which really allows you to drop into that. When you journey, it can be a little bit like a dream. And you know how a dream just kind of unfolds? That's what we want to do. We want to allow this experience to unfold for us. Jim, have you got anything else you want to add there?
I think the only thing that I would add is when I go into the lower world and I've gone down into the earth and then kind of going through a passageway, I often see like a shimmer or like a veil that I'm stepping through when I'm going from this world into the lower world. And that visualization helps me know that I've gone through that transition.
Mm. The other thing I would say is as you're going down, if you come out into a space where there are more modern things like um, I don't know, like knives or weapons or modern type buildings and that kind of thing, you maybe haven't gone far enough. So you need to come back and go back down a little bit further because the place where you pop out might have people there, but in general, it'll be from pre-agricultural communities. Um, okay, do we have any questions before we start? I'm going to just go through what we're doing again. So get yourself nice and comfy. The drum beat is going to begin like this. Can I just check you can hear the drum? Jim, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear the drum? Yeah, okay, cool. If you've got headphones, it does work a little bit better on headphones, but you absolutely don't need to. And as I said before, if at any point you feel a little bit, you feel like your nervous system's activated or you're feeling that you want to come out of the journey, all you have to do is open your eyes and just ground yourself back on the floor, focus on your breath. You might want to look around the room and just really land back in the space you are. And like Jim and I said, we're here for you if you need anything afterwards, if you want to talk through anything that's happened. So the drum is going to be going at a pace like this. So we're going to be drumming for 10 minutes and then towards the end of the journey, the drum beat is going to change and it's going to speed up like this. So when it speeds up, you'll hear the difference in cadence, and that's your signal to come back to this world. So this is where you say thank you and goodbye to your power-animal, and then you come back up through your axis mundi and back into this world, and I'll guide you through that, the final bit, just to make sure you're back in this space. So you're going to ask to meet your power-animal. You're going to ask it 3 times if it is your power-animal, and once you've established that connection, if you've got any questions, if you've got anything you want to know, then ask away. That's your time to do that. So just going to invite, I think everybody's on mute, going to invite everybody to stay on mute, and let's begin. So, if you haven't already, now is your time to come back up to this world, back up through to your axis mundi, and back into this space. And inviting you to feel your body resting against the ground, the chair, the cushion, just feeling those points of contact, feeling the breath coming in and out of the body. You might want to wriggle your fingers and toes and bring a little bit of movement back into your limbs. You might want to have a little bit of a stretch. And then whenever you're ready, opening your eyes and coming back to this space. So, as always, I'm always really curious to find out how people got on in this practice and whether there are any surprises. I forgot to mention earlier that some people are like, oh, I really love wolves. I'm pretty sure my power animal's a wolf. And then they find out their power animal is a beetle or, or something a little bit less magnificent, and can sometimes be a little bit disappointed. But every animal has its magic and its medicine. So you can either pop in the chat or you can unmute yourself, have a little, give us a wave and unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. We've got a few minutes that we can share.
Yes, hi.
Hey. Hi.
It was
Hello,
very
lovely.
interesting journey because I saw a moose. So I was like in a river and I saw a moose and I was even riding on the moose. And
Mhm.
I'm really, before this, I don't think I had any special connection to this animal, but yeah, it's fun.
Amazing. That's great. And so you got a real connection there with it. And perhaps that's something to go back and explore a little bit further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely want
Thank
to.
you. Perfect. Thank you, Eve. Anybody else want to share their experience?
Well, I went to Castle Rig Stone Circle
Ah, nice.
as my access point, which I thought was quite interesting, having been there, but not recently. Um,
Mm.
uh, and in terms of how an animal, well, I talked to a lot of animals when I was down there, but none of them stuck. But 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 I was moving through this realm, and I finally met a woman, and I chose her as my power animal. She resonated. Now I'm not sure if that's a valid choice because it's she's an animal, um, but not an animal in the sense that you were introducing it. So I don't know if that works or whether I have to go back and find another, do a swap.
Do a swap. I don't think there's any need to do a swap, but you can definitely go back and journey and just like double check. Are you my power person or my power
Oh,
animal? Are you my
oh,
my
oh
guide?
we had a deep conversation on that, and definitely.
Oh, well, there you go then. No problem.
No question. Uh, far far more interesting than any of the other animals that I met down there. And much more to
Brilliant.
say that was a value for me. So, and not somebody,
Perfect. You're all
not somebody I could relate to. It wasn't as though it was a representation of somebody I'd met before or looked like anybody I'd met before. I did wonder whether the elements of my mother uh, in this person, which was quite an interesting bit of reflection. I didn't ask her that, by the way, but I could have done. Yeah, so that's what came up for me.
wonderful. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. And it's so individual to each and every one of us. I'm just having a quick look at the chat. There's an eagle, there's a badger. Um, Diana felt something feline and silvery. Oh, it's snow leopard. The words came into her head. Now that's the really interesting thing because that's another another way of just accessing our intuition there with words. Um, that's wonderful. A bird, a moose and a bee and a blackbird. Beautiful. And if anybody didn't quite get there, don't worry. This doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen immediately. Um, and sometimes people might search for their power animal for years, and sometimes people might try and journey for years and never quite get there. But when it's your time, it'll be your time. What else have we got? A dragon, a cow, a black cow. A heron said no, a kingfisher said maybe. Yeah. Jim, do you have any thoughts about this? Any comments you want to share?
Yeah, so I'm not as strong as Jen is with the visualization. Matter of fact, when I first started studying meditation, I was 19, and I was studying Kundalini meditation. And this woman's leading us through this. I think it was like a 9-week course, but she's leading us through this practice. And she's like, I want you to visualize these colored balls and put your consciousness in the colored balls and then move them up and down your spine to your different chakras. And I remember thinking, lady, I don't see any colored balls. And I can't move my consciousness because it's right in the center of my skull, because that's where my brain is. That's what produces my consciousness. So that's kind of where I started with visualization. And often what I'll do is if I'm doing a drum journey or if I'm doing a power retrieval, and it's almost like I'll see shadows. And then I'll just kind of focus on, okay, there's something in the shadow, and maybe there's a shape in the shadow, and I kind of lean into where I see an edge of something, and then often then it'll pop into Technicolor. At some point it just shifts, and then I'm seeing. And so I saw in the comments somebody was talking about there was a bird, but they couldn't quite make out what it was. So I often find that, if I can just kind of focus on what I can see and then just really lean into that, then it'll shift, and I can get some more visual. And then if I don't, I'm either working with intuition or messages that are coming in.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I'm just seeing a comment in the chat from Trin saying that she tries and journeys, but she only sees black. Do you have anything to speak to around that, Jim?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've spoken to a little bit, but I would just say lean into what does show up. So whether it's an emotion, whether it's a feeling sense that's coming in. My default, I talk about, we have these senses. My default is tactile. So what I mean by that is like I'll feel a space or a room and get information, and it's almost, I almost feel like I'm reaching out and touching the space, and then I get information. I'll get intuitions or information that comes in from doing that. And so lean into those senses or elements that where you are getting information, because something's going to come to you. And even if it's just an idea, right, or something that's dropping in, just trust that you're getting the information you're supposed to be getting it in the way that you're supposed to be getting it. And just know that all of us are unique, right? That's the one thing that I love about the Toltec cosmology, this idea that we each hold our own unique vibration. And so, and even with the practices, like I will take a, one, I've had this experience where I've come up with a practice, but two, you can modify a practice, right? So tweak the practices in the way that works for you. Um, you know, I almost said this before, but it may be you jump into the upper world, right? So it may be that you're all of a sudden flying or you're up with angels. You're not going into the lower world. Archangel Michael is one of my guides that I work with, all the time. So it's not always, yeah, just trust that you're getting the information the way that you're supposed to, and that it's you, and lean into what works for you.
Mm.
Woof. Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Because like the only time I've ever had like a visceral experience is when I had a Kundalini activation, and that kind of showed me like a light language. Well, I downloaded information of like light language, but it sent me into a bit of psychosis as well. So that's the only time I've ever kind of experienced anything visceral. Um, it's like a, yeah, a journey.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Chin. We can always chat offline if you wanna talk about that a little bit more. I'd be really happy to chat
Yeah,
through that with you.
thank you.
Um,
Sorry. Yeah.
One of the other things I was going to say was sometimes we can see an animal and think, oh, it's just in my imagination. So, say for example, an animal that we see is like a leopard, and we were watching David Attenborough the week before, and there was a leopard on David Attenborough, and we'd be like, oh, I'm only thinking of that because I saw it on television, when actually that spirit putting that in our line of sight because spirit knows we're going to be journeying, or it's lining us up for that. So it's really important that we don't dismiss these things when they're presented to us.
Yeah, in the Toltec cosmology, we've got this concept of power signs, right? And these are the things that keep showing up in our vision or showing up in our life. And it's like we pay attention to pay attention to these things that keep recurring. Which goes to what Jen was saying about the power animals.
Mm, yeah, thank you. So does
Yeah,
anybody
for,
have any other, oh, sorry, is there a question there,
well,
Raquel?
I was about to share that for
Yeah,
me,
please.
I said an ostrich at the beginning, but then I saw a turtle. And it's curious because I have a turtle in my altar. I have a turtle in my laptop as a screen, the screen thing, you know. So I felt like I've been kind of like always with a turtle in my life, and now it was really beautiful to see her swimming around and to connect with her.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And the ostrich as well. What we can do often is we can feel into what is the medicine of the animals that we're seeing. So even if they're not our power animals or necessarily our own spirit animals, but they show up, what's the medicine in it? What does it mean to us? So especially in this world, when we see something, like what's the medicine of the buzzard? What's the medicine of the badger? What's the medicine of the hedgehog? When we see a little hedgehog going along the road and hopefully not getting run over. But all of these things, what's the meaning in it for us? And that's the key thing as part of these practices. Does anybody have any questions, any more questions about the power animals or the journeys or anything relating to shamanism? We've got just a few minutes left, and then I'm going to close our circle. If you think of anything, just pop it in the chat and we'll pick it up again. What I
Well,
go on.
no, I just wanted to say one thing is, um, this is often for me is more of a feeling sense than a verbal or an intellectual exercise. I'm often, it's like feeling into the energy. Um, yeah, it's motion. It's the feeling sense. It's the rhythm. Um, it's not about, it's not necessarily about the intellectual piece. Yeah, that feels complete.
Okay, thank you. Deborah's just asked, how would you take yourself on a journey? That's a great question. So you would follow the same process that we've gone through today. And there are a couple of tracks, shamanic tracks on Spotify. I can share them. I'm going to send out an email after this to everybody so I can share those on there. I think I can just copy a link in. What's important or really helpful is to have a callback. So the one that I use has there's a 15-minute journey which has that callback, and then there's a 30-minute journey which has that callback where there's the variation of the drum. And you would essentially go to your Axis Mundi, you'd go down into the lower world, and you'd talk to your power animal. You'd find your power animal, and then you go and ask for whatever it is you want or you need. If you're struggling to find your power animal, you can still journey anyway. You can still journey down into the lower world and see what happens, see what comes to you. But at some point, it's likely that you will find your power animal. And when you're doing it, just set your intention of what it is you want to get out of it, what it is you want to, what's your desire? Do I want healing? Do I want understanding? And see what happens. It's all good, Trin. It's all good. Are there limits to the amount of journeys you should take? No, I journey all the bloody time. If I've got a question, I journey. If I've got a problem, I journey. If I need some healing or strength or power, I journey. I probably I probably journey 3 or 4 times a week. I've journeyed twice today already. And if I'm going to do something, I'm loving Eve's rockets going up there. If I'm journeying, if I've got something like this, I'll journey to find out what is it I need to know. Is there anything I need to bring in? When I do my women's circles or holding space, I'll often check in and journey to ask for, what ritual should I do? Is there anything I need to know for this particular space I'm going to be holding? So yeah, there you can journey as much as you want. Diana says you're feeling a bit cold and shaky now. Is that normal? It can be, just like when we're doing any energy work, we are shifting energy while we do this. So what I would recommend is get yourself a cup of tea, get yourself in a blanket, get yourself grounded again. So just like we do in Reiki, obviously you'll be familiar with that, Diana. Once you get some water inside you, get some food inside you, it helps to bring you back into your body, and then just really focus on the feeling of your body resting on the ground. And if you need any help, just please reach out to me or Jim. Okay, we are going to be, if you guys have any questions at all after this, you're very welcome to get in touch, because as you might have guessed, Jim and I love talking about shamanism. What we'd love to do is just share some of the things that we've got coming up, because we've got stuff coming up in Cumbria for those who are local to Cumbria, and also to those who are to international. We're going to be doing some smaller events in Cumbria, and then some bigger, longer trainings in Wales. So the first thing we've got coming up, if anybody is yet to decide what they're doing for the summer solstice, we've got a fire walk, Soul Fire Festival and fire walk. So a fire festival and a fire walk, and that is on the solstice eve, which is the 20th of June, and that is on just outside Keswick in the Lake District. And then the day after, which is the 21st of June, we've got a 1-day introduction to shamanism. So this is kind of building on this, but we're really going to do a bit more of a deep dive, and we're going to learn how to do a power retrieval in that, Jim, aren't we? I think we are. And then after that, we have got, if anybody's interested in making their own shamanic drum, I've got some over there. They are really beautiful drums that Jim and I help people to make. So we've got a drum birthing day on the 5th of August if you want to make your own shamanic tool, and having your own drum is a really beautiful thing to do. And then we've got our practitioner training coming up. Jim, do you want to chat a little bit about the practitioner training? We've got a foundations week, and then we've got a full practitioner training as well.
So the foundations week is in some ways like an initiation. So we are going to be covering all the things. So we're going to be teaching meditation, grounding, shielding. You will be doing a drum birthing as part of that. We'll be doing power retrievals. We're going to be doing a fire walk, a sweat lodge. We're going to be teaching other tools like the four angels, the
Recapitulation.
I wanted to call it the Druid. It's not Druid Council.
Spirit Council.
Spirit Council. Thank you. So the foundations course will cover everything that you need to establish a practice. And one of the things that's really different about, I said at the beginning of the call, I mean, I've studied with at least 4 different lineages. I've also taught with a number of different other schools. And my experience is most people don't teach fundamentals. So they kind of jump you right into practices, but they're not teaching you on how to set a container. They're not teaching you really on how to set your space. And so we're going to be starting, with the foundations, and then also all the way through to the practices. And then when we get to the practitioner course, that's when you're going to be working with these practices every day. So the foundations course gives you all the pieces that you need to get started, and then you'll have a couple of months to work with your practices. And then when you come back to the practitioners training, then you are going to be working with these practices and working with each other on a daily basis. So you really get these ingrained into your system, and you're able to come out of the practitioner's practice ready to work with other people.
Mm. And what's interesting about this course is it's not only teaching you to work one to one with people, it's teaching you to work one to many. So holding space, holding ritual. How do you hold a shamanic container for people to guide people through a drum journey, for example? And the other thing is that I'm really hot on ethics and making sure that practitioners work in a very professional way. So the course is accredited by the IPHM. We go through ethics, we go through practitioner standards, we go through trauma-informed techniques to help people as they go through their journey as a practitioner. So yeah, that's the special bit. That's the bit that I bring in particularly, isn't it? So yeah, so that's going on this year. So if you're curious about that, let us know. I'll be sending an email out about it anyway. If you want to do firewalk instructor training, if you want to become a firewalking instructor, we're also running a FIT, as we call it, in September. And we also have an ancestral firewalk that we're doing in October as well, just before Samhain, before Halloween. Have I missed something? Oh,
The Vision Quest.
Vision Quest. We have a Vision Quest. It's really special. Go on, Jim. This is your jam. You can talk about it.
So a Vision Quest it's a traditional ceremony where you spend 4 days and 4 nights out on the land. And so it's a 10-day container. And so in the beginning of the container, you will create the artifacts that will become the container that you will be sitting in. And so what this means is you're going to be creating prayer ties, and you string of prayer ties for each of the 4 directions. And then you're creating robes for each of the 4 directions, plus Father Sky, Mother Earth, and the Divine, or the Great Unknown, or the Great Mystery, Spirit. And then they'll go through purification lodges for each of the directions, and then you'll have a purific lodge when you go out on the land and when you come back in from the land. And led Jen through this process last year. Jen, do you want to talk at all about your experience?
Honestly, it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. So it's in the most beautiful valley in Wales that you feel like you're cut off from everywhere. It's a beautiful little off-grid encampment, and then there's the whole valley to go and be in. And it was just so profound. There's nowhere to hide. So you're in this beautiful creation of your own prayer ties. So I'd sent created prayers for my children, my family, Mother Earth, all of these prayer ties created a beautiful little space where I was for those 4 days. And there's just you and the land and spirit, and that's it. And you can ask questions to spirit, and you can there's no distractions. There's no, and because part of it is fasting, so you have a food fast, you don't eat. That actually gives you so much more spaciousness to really drop into the spirit world. You still drink water, so and somebody comes and checks on you every day at least, make sure you're all right. However, and then actually what was lovely was both Jim and all the people back in the camp hold that space for you, so they're all like sending their well wishes, and they're holding space for you even though you're out on the land and they're there. So it's a really, really beautiful experience. I would thoroughly recommend it. So yeah, thank you. So we've gone 5 minutes over. I apologize. I'm going to close the circle now, and then Jim and I'll hang on here in case anybody's got any other questions. So we are going to begin with thanking ourselves for being here, thanking ourselves for showing up here, our little soul for being here and learning about shamanism. We are going to bring our arms up again and thank Father Sky and Grandmother Moon for holding us in this space. We are going to bring our hands down to Mother Earth to give our gratitude to Mother Earth for holding us and giving us this beautiful space in order to explore. We're then going to turn to the north. Can you remember where the north is? We're going to turn to the north, and we're going to give our gratitude to the ancient spirits of the north for keeping us grounded in this space and for giving us any insight and potential for manifestation as we did our journey. So we're going to say hail and farewell to the spirits of the north. We're then going to turn to the west. So we're going the other direction, this time anti-clockwise, and we're going to give our gratitude to the ancient spirits of the west and the element of water. So thanking our ancestors, thanking the element of water for helping us to be able to step into the dream world, into our journeys. So hail and farewell to the west. We're then going to turn to the south, to the element of fire, and to give our gratitude for lighting our way, for giving us the power to go and see what it is we needed to see tonight. So our deepest gratitude to the spirits of the south, hail and farewell. And then finally to the ancient spirits of the east and the element of air. Thank you for bringing us clarity and insight and bringing us the start of the winds of change, as we always have. So hail and farewell to the spirits of the east. So thank you so much for joining us. That's our circle open. And hopefully you felt the energy of the container as we did this work. And if anybody's got any questions, Jim and I love talking about shamanism. So please fire away. And I'm very proud of myself because I didn't swear once. I did not use the F-bomb. I didn't F-bomb anybody today. But thank you so much for being here. And as I said, I'll send out a following up email. Lots of thank yous. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.